Hi, I'm Kevin. This year I set myself a challenge to watch a new movie every day and give a rating out of 5. So without further ado, here are the next 6 movies on the list, with spoilers. Okay, next up was The Wave. And this one was really good too. There's a whole bunch of movies called The Wave, but this one is with Justin Long. And the premise of this one is he goes to a party and he goes with a friend and he meets a girl, and they end up taking a drug together. And the guy says, when the drug comes on, it hits you like a wave, hence the name of the movie. And this movie was really it was a cool trip. It started me on a kind of like time loop type movies, because after he takes this drug, he's sitting in a chair in the evening at this like raging party. There's people everywhere. He takes the drug with this lady, and then it immediately cuts to the next day. The entire party's cleared out, and he's still sitting in the exact same chair, exact same position, and everything. And he just completely lost track of all the time between him taking the drug and where he is the next day. And then when he comes to, people are knocking on the door, and they're like, "Who's this guy in my house?" They didn't even know that there was a party there, and it was great. It goes some really good places. Where I'd probably give this one a 4 as well, because I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. It is, it's a drug movie, and um, but it's the way it deals with time was really, really, really cool. So I'll say spoilers on this one. Turns out he figures out how to manipulate time in such a way where he can go back to that time that he lost. He kind of keeps flashing forward, just randomly for a little while, and then there's a point where he seems to almost get hit by a car, and then he flashes back, and then he gets some of his time back, and he does some really, really cool things to come to terms with his new powers. And at the end, he gets his boss in a whole lot of trouble. Essentially, he plants some drugs on his boss's car, and then he ends up getting hit by a car and dying. But he knows that that's happening, so he goes back in time to like set up a bunch of things to make his death worth it. It was a really, really good wrap up for it, and even if the main character dies at the end, sometimes it is a good thing in my mind. So I give this one 4 out of 5. Then I watched 3,000 Years of Longing. And this was with Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. And it kind of caught my eye because it's about a jinn, essentially a genie. So she is a travel, or not a travel, she's a writer. So she travels the world in search of stories. And that's really what this movie is all about. It's she gets a little antique curio, and she ends up trying to clean it, and in cleaning it, she rubs the lamp. Out pops the djinn. She gets 3 wishes. She doesn't know what to do with her wishes, and she has heard all the cautionary tales from Aladdin and all the other like wish movies where, whatever you wish for, it's always gonna backfire. There's no right way to do it. So she doesn't want to make wishes because she doesn't want to end up screwing herself over. So when she's kind of hemming and hawing about what she should wish for, the djinn talks about his past and how he ended up in the little curio bottle that she had. So he tells several stories about his past, and that's the 3,000 Years of Longing, because it turns out a lot of the people that got him caught up in these bottles were women that he was in love with. I'd say the ending of this movie is probably the weakest part. It didn't really stick the landing, but this is a definite 4 out of 5 for me. I very, very, very much enjoyed it until the ending. And it wasn't like the ending was terrible. It was just like everything leading up to it was so good. Great actors like throughout all the stories, and they were all cautionary tales, turns out, as she was expecting, about what can go wrong with wishes. Like one of the wishes were, I wish I had never met you. And that kind of put him in a weird spot because the wish was granted immediately and he is now just in a bottle. And that's how he ended up with her. So I'll throw the spoiler tag on here. So she ends up making 3 wishes. I don't remember what they all are because it's been so long since I've seen it. But she one of the wishes is she wishes that she was in love with him and he was in love with her the way that he loved the women of his past. And she knew that that was not a good wish because how do you make someone love you that doesn't love you? So she kind of felt that she screwed him over in a way. So she ends up setting him free at the end, and I guess you could say that they just become very close friends. And he visits her every few years to kind of catch up, but he gets to live a free life. So that was, I mean, it was all right, but it just her wishing for him to fall in love with her, and then they like moved to the city and stuff. It was just kind of like a weird transition from the old period piece that it was originally when it was telling his past stories of his past lovers. So 4 to 5. Okay, and then on to a movie that, oof. This one was heavy. I thought it was going to be like, oh, cool, Carey Mulligan and Bo Burnham. All right, cool, let's watch Promising Young Woman. Woo! It kind of reminds me of Last Night in Soho in the main character with main character woman, it's a very strong lead. What she did in this movie is her friend had committed suicide in the past. So, and the reason she did that is she was sexually assaulted by a group of men, and she ends up killing herself. So it was, she's got this Carey Mulligan character has a lot of baggage. So what she ends up doing to try and get back at shitty guys, essentially, is she goes to bars and she pretends to be blackout drunk and lets nice guys take her home. And then when they start to take advantage of her, because they inevitably do, as shitty nice guys can, she basically comes to. She stops acting drunk and she says, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she really puts them in their place, and tries to, I guess, teach people a lesson for the things that they've done. And this goes, I mean, that's a terrible idea in my mind, because if you're going home with a random shitty guy, like, who knows what could happen, right? And, well, I guess things happen in this movie that it's not always a good, it's not always good what happens. She goes to continue to try and get revenge for her friend and the people that wronged her, and no one in the group of guys that sexually assaulted her were like, they got away, essentially. There were reports to the dean and everything, and they did an investigation that concluded nobody did anything wrong, which of course is wrong. So she goes and she gets back at those people one at a time, and that's really, really clever the way they did that. I'd put this one at a 4 to 5 too. I really, really liked this movie a lot, but it has some very, very, very dark subject matter. But it is, it's good. It's a tough one to watch, but it's a good movie. And for spoilers on this one, she ends up going to the bachelor party of the guy, like the main guy who was responsible for her friend's assault. And she goes to the bachelor party dressed up as a hooker, or not as a hooker, as a stripper. And at the bachelor party, she drugs all the guys but one, the guy who's getting married, the man responsible. And she gets him up into his room, and she says, "I only get paid if we go into your room." So they go into the room. She handcuffs him to the bed, and she's gonna start to tattoo her friend's name on his forehead. And he ends up killing her. So the main character of the movie dies in the movie, and she knew the dangers, and so she had set up, I guess, a chain of events to what would happen in case she doesn't return home. So it ends up with at the actual wedding, this guy gets arrested for her murder, and it's basically she gets revenge, but at what cost? And the cost was her life. So it was not a happy movie by any means, but it was an interesting watch, and it was a very, very well acted. It was a good movie all around. And turns out Bo Burnham in this one is a piece of shit. So real interesting. Okay, on to the next one. Gotta pull this up to make sure I get the right. Alright, so the next movie that I saw was The Flash. And this one's skippable. This is just, it's a DC movie. I kind of wanted to turn my brain off, I guess you could say, and watch a fun action movie. And it was fine. It wasn't. There are a lot of like plot holes that I wasn't thrilled about. Alternate universes. He runs so fast he goes back in time, and he ends up going into alternate universes where there are, like in this poster here, there's a Supergirl instead of Superman, because Kal-El didn't make it to Earth, and all this other stuff. So it's like they bring back Michael Keaton's Batman, which is cool. Ben Affleck's Batman was in this. There's a part with Wonder Woman. She uses the lasso, or like the rope of truth, or whatever. And it's just, it's played for laughs in a bad way. Skip it. Like, this is a skip movie. I'd probably give this one a 2 out of 5. It was whatever. I didn't love it. And then I guess spoilers is, in going back in time, he accidentally creates an alternate version of himself who has been like the antagonist and like a major enemy. So he has to kill himself, and it just, I don't know, stupid. It was dumb. Don't worry about this one. All right. So after that, I saw Sweeney Todd. And this is one that I had always been really curious about because I heard. Nope, no spoilers on this. Okay, so Sweeney Todd is one that I've heard really, really good things about because it's a really good musical, and I love Johnny Depp as an actor. uh, and when this came out, it was like, I was very curious about the whole idea that a barber kills people, and it had a lot of great actors in this one as well, including Helena Bonham Carter, and Borat was in it, and even well, oh my gosh, what's his name? I gotta pull this up. Alan Rickman. There we go. The late great Alan Rickman. And it was good. I mean, this movie was really, really good. It's probably one of the best musicals I've seen. It is extraordinarily graphically violent. There is a lot of blood, as you might expect when people are getting sliced across the throat. And it's, I wouldn't say it's tasteful, but it's done to dramatic effect. I think Tim Burton really had fun with this one, I think. But the music was really good. The acting was really good. This one for me is a 4 out of 5. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but it's a good musical. If you like musicals, you don't mind blood, and you want to see Borat get killed, this is a good one. And then we'll do spoilers. He lives above Helena Bonham Carter's character, and she ends up making meat pies out of the people they're killing. And then he has like an understudy, I guess you could call him, or she has an understudy that he helps him he helps her bake pies, and he he knows there's something afoot, like something happens, where he's kind of suspicious, like where are all these people going? And then he ends up finding a finger in one of his meat pies, and he starts to go after them and to try and get them caught. And long story short, Sweeney Todd is just he's pissed. His old wife and daughter turns out they're alive, and just down the street from him. And Helen Bonham Carter knew that and didn't tell him. So Sweeney Todd kills her, and then the little kid kills Sweeney Todd at the end, and it wrapped up very nicely. So yeah, this is a 4 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I think, despite it being a musical, it was a good ride. Okay, so, where's my list? Huh. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so I have the list over here too. So the next one is a movie called We Need to Talk About Kevin. And if you don't know me, my name is Kevin. So this is why I watched this one. Another Ezra Miller joint. They were in The Flash, and Tilda Swinton, who was in 3,000 Years of Longing. So it kind of all came together. I was like, this is a perfect movie to watch. I don't really know what to expect. John C. Reilly plays her husband and Kevin's father. And it's just the story of a mother who has a kid who hates her. It's really, really interesting because he seems to have good relationships with his dad. Like he gets along with he's fine at school. He has some issues, but he's like an asshole to her constantly. There's only one time in the movie where he shows any like positive emotion to her, and it's when she's reading the story of Robin Hood to him, and he's sick. He's like under the weather, so he's got the sniffles, and he like cuddles up to her, and that's like the first time in her life that he actually showed any sort of empathy towards her. He was very, very cold. It was like honestly really well acted by the kid all the way through. So after Robin Hood, he ends up getting a bow and arrow, and he's training with his dad, John C. Reilly, how to shoot an arrow. I would say this one's a 3 out of 5 for me. I think the subject matter was so heavy that it really left like a kind of sour taste in my mouth. I think the most interesting part was just watching her try and be as good of a mother as she could be to this kid that just hates her guts for absolutely no reason. So spoilers for this one is the kid gets older, again played by Ezra Miller, and a couple days before Kevin's 16th birthday, he has his bow and arrow, and he ends up killing his dad, his sister, and then he goes to the high school and locks a bunch of kids in the gym. It's not specified how many, but there's at least 3 bodies shown. He locks a bunch of kids in a gym and kills them with the bow and arrow, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. She ends up going to visit him in prison. It's also, I forgot to mention this part, but the movie's kind of told two different time periods. One of them is just her trying to live her life in town, and people in town are just treating her like shit. And it turns out it's because her son, like she raised a kid who ended up killing a bunch of kids in high school. And then she goes to visit him in prison, and she says, "Why did you do it?" And he said, "Well, at the time I thought I knew, but now I don't know if I know anymore." So it's very vague, and it just kind of, I think the message here was, sometimes it's not about the way the kid is raised, and I guess you could just have a bad egg or something. It doesn't really I don't know. I think that's why I'm putting it at a three. Is I was expecting the ending to be like, and it was actually the son of Satan this whole time or something, but it's no. It's like no, this kid was just a piece of shit. Turns out, and maybe he regrets it now. So that was that. It was very very heavy, and I was not expecting a school shooting at the end. And that's a total of 12 movies rated. Stay tuned for 354 more KeveRatings. Comment your suggestions below, and we'll see if it makes the list. Thanks for watching.